She had everything the world said mattered. A corner office, 7-figure salary, and great respect from every boardroom she entered. But on her 36th birthday, sitting alone on a snow-covered bench, Bridget Jones realized she had built an empire around an empty heart. Then a 5-year-old stranger asked her one question that would shatter everything she thought she knew about success. "Ma'am, can I spend a day with you? I don't have a mom." What happened next wasn't just kindness. It was destiny wrapped in a child's innocent plea. This is the story of how one lonely woman and one motherless little girl saved each other and built something far more valuable than any empire.
The snow fell like whispered secrets over Riverside City Park that December afternoon. Each flake descended in its own quiet tragedy, piling silently on wrought iron benches and empty playground swings. It was the kind of cold that made breath visible, the kind that turned solitude into something you could feel in your bones. Bridget Jones sat motionless on her usual bench, the same one she occupied every workday at 1 p.m. sharp. Her tailored, expensive and perfect charcoal wool coat didn't quite keep out the chill. Or maybe the cold came from somewhere deeper. Around her, the park exhaled winter. Bare tree branches reached toward a grey sky. A mother pushed a stroller in the distance, humming softly to her baby. An elderly couple shuffled past, hands intertwined despite the ice. Everyone seemed to be holding someone. Bridget held her phone. To anyone watching, she looked like success incarnate. 36 years old. CEO of Meridian Solutions, a consulting firm she'd built from nothing into a multi-million-dollar operation. Her dark hair fell in perfect waves past her shoulders. Her makeup was flawless. Her posture spoke of confidence. But if you looked closer, really looked, you'd see her thumb hovering over her phone screen without scrolling. You'd notice her eyes weren't reading emails, they were staring through them. You'd catch the way her breath hitched slightly every few minutes, like someone trying not to feel something. Today was her birthday. She'd received 47 messages, clients, colleagues, LinkedIn connections typing obligatory well wishes. Her assistant had sent flowers to her apartment. Her father had called from Florida, the conversation lasting exactly 4 minutes before he mentioned his tea time. Not one message asked how she actually felt. Because Bridget Jones had spent 15 years becoming the kind of woman who didn't need to feel anything. She had goals instead of relationships, achievements instead of memories, quarterly projections instead of dinner parties. She told herself it was enough. She told herself this every single day. The lie was getting harder to believe. She refreshed her email for the 3rd time in 5 minutes, not because anything urgent awaited, but because the silence of doing nothing felt like drowning. Another meeting in 40 minutes. Another evening in her pristine apartment with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a city full of people she'd never know. Another birthday candle she wouldn't blow out because there was no one to witness the wish.
"Ma'am?" The voice was so small. Bridget almost missed it beneath the whisper of falling snow. She looked up. A little girl stood 3 feet away, clutching a teddy bear that had seen better days. The bear's left ear was sewn back on with mismatched thread. One button eye dangled loose. The child herself looked like she'd been dressed by someone who was trying their best but didn't quite know how. Her pink winter coat was 2 sizes too big, the sleeves covering her hands completely. Her jeans had a patch on one knee. Her blonde hair was pulled into a ponytail that was already coming undone, wispy strands escaping around her face. But it was her eyes that stopped Bridget's heart. They were the oldest eyes she'd ever seen in a 5-year-old face. Sad. Knowing. Gentle in the way that only comes from understanding loss too early. "Yes, sweetheart," Bridget heard herself say, her CEO voice softening into something she barely recognized. The little girl took one small step closer, hugging her teddy bear tighter. "Are you lonely?" The question hit Bridget like a physical blow. She opened her mouth to say no, to deflect with the same polished dismissal she used in boardrooms when investors got too personal. To smile and redirect and maintain the armor she'd spent decades perfecting. But something in those ancient child eyes stopped her. "What makes you ask that?" Bridget whispered instead. The little girl tilted her head, studying her with heartbreaking wisdom. "You look like my daddy does sometimes. When he thinks I'm sleeping. He sits by the window and his face gets really quiet, like yours. Like he's trying really hard not to cry." Bridget's throat tightened. "I'm just taking a lunch break," she managed. But you're not eating anything, the child observed. And you keep looking at your phone, but you're not really looking. You're doing what Daddy calls hiding in plain sight. A laugh escaped Bridget, surprised, raw, almost painful. That's very observant. My name is Sophie, the little girl said, shifting her teddy bear to one arm so she could extend a small, mitten-covered hand. Sophie Martinez. This is Mr. Buttons. He's very good at noticing when people are sad. Bridget found herself shaking the tiny hand solemnly. Bridget Jones. I'm pleased to meet you both. Sophie's face brightened for just a moment, a glimpse of the carefree child she should have been, before the sadness settled back over her features like a familiar coat. Sometimes, Bridget admitted, the words coming from somewhere she didn't recognize, sometimes I am lonely. Even in a crowded room. Sophie nodded seriously, as if this made perfect sense. Me too. Especially in crowded rooms.
They sat in silence for a moment, an unlikely pair united by admissions neither usually made. Snow continued its steady descent, accumulating on Sophie's oversized coat, on Mr. Button's worn fur, on the bench between them. My mommy died, Sophie said quietly, matter of fact, in the way children deliver devastating truths, without preamble and without softening. 2 years ago. I was 3, but I remember her smell, like vanilla, and something else I can't remember the name of. Lavender, maybe? Bridget offered gently. Lavender, Sophie repeated, testing the word. Yes, vanilla and lavender. She used to braid my hair really pretty, with ribbons. She touched her messy ponytail self-consciously. Daddy tries, but he doesn't know how to do the ribbons right. He makes my lunch and he reads me stories and he works really hard so we can stay in our apartment. He's the best daddy in the whole world. The fierce loyalty in her voice made Bridget's eyes burn. But, Bridget prompted softly. But he's not a mommy, Sophie whispered. And sometimes I miss having a mommy so much it hurts in my stomach. I see other girls at school, and their mommies pick them up and they know how to do the hair ribbons and they smell like vanilla lavender. And they... Her small voice cracked. They just know things. Girl things. Mommy things. And I don't have anyone to teach me. Bridget felt something inside her chest crack open. Something she'd kept sealed for years, maybe decades. Tears blurred her vision. I'm so sorry, Sophie. Sophie looked up at her, and in that moment, Bridget saw herself reflected in miniature, a soul trying desperately to be brave, while crumbling inside. Mom, Miss Bridget, could I maybe? Sophie's voice dropped to barely a whisper, as if the request was so enormous, she could hardly voice it. Could I spend a day with you? Just one day. To do girl things. I promise I won't be any trouble. I'm very good at being quiet, and I don't eat very much, and... Sophie, Bridget interrupted gently, reaching out to touch the child's shoulder. You wouldn't be trouble. Hope flickered across Sophie's face like candlelight. Really? Really? But sweetheart, where's your daddy? Does he know you're talking to strangers? Sophie pointed across the playground to another bench, partially obscured by a snow-covered oak tree. A man sat there, phone pressed to his ear, his free hand running through his dark hair in obvious frustration. Even from a distance, Bridget could read the tension in his shoulders, the weariness in his posture. He wore a maintenance uniform with a name patch, Kendrick, and work boots that had seen better days. His coat was practical, not fashionable. Everything about him spoke of someone hanging on by his fingernails, doing his absolute best, barely keeping his head above water. That's my daddy, Sophie said with unmistakable pride. He's on his break too. He works at the big building over there. She pointed to the Sterling Tower, one of the most expensive office complexes in the city. He fixes things. He's really good at it, but his boss called, and he sounds mad. As if on cue, Kendrick's voice rose slightly, audible across the snowy park. I understand, sir, but I can't come back early. I used my break time to bring my daughter to the park like I promised her. I'll be back at 2 o'clock sharp. Yes, sir. I understand. Thank you. He ended the call and sat motionless for a long moment, head bowed, the picture of exhausted defeat. Then he looked up, scanning the playground urgently. Sophie, baby, where? I'm here, Daddy, Sophie called, waving. Kendrick's eyes landed on his daughter sitting next to a well-dressed stranger, and Bridget watched panic flash across his face. He was on his feet instantly, moving toward them with the protective intensity of a parent who'd already lost too much. "Sophie Martinez, what have I told you about talking to strangers?" Kendrick said as he reached them, his voice tight with worry rather than anger. "I'm sorry, Daddy, but she looked lonely like you sometimes and I thought." "It's my fault," Bridget said quickly, standing up. "I should have come found you immediately. I'm Bridget Jones. Your daughter is remarkable, Mr. Martinez. And completely safe. We've just been talking." Kendrick looked at her, really looked, taking in the expensive coat, the polished appearance, the gentle expression on her face. His protective instinct warred with something else, the bone-deep fatigue of a man doing everything alone. "I appreciate that, Miss Jones. Sophie, come here, please." Sophie obediently moved to her father's side, but kept looking back at Bridget with desperate hope. "Daddy, I asked her something. Something important. Sophie, we talked about this." "I know, but Daddy, please just listen." Sophie grabbed her father's hand with both of hers. "I asked Miss Bridget if maybe I could spend one day with her. Just one day. To do girl things. Because she seems really nice and really lonely and maybe we could both be less lonely together." The raw honesty of it stopped Kendrick mid-objection. He looked at Bridget with new eyes, seeing past the expensive clothes to the loneliness his daughter had somehow recognized. Seeing the tears still glistening on her cheeks. Seeing someone as isolated as he felt, just wrapped in a prettier package. "Mr. Martinez," Bridget said softly, "I know how this sounds. I know you don't know me, but your daughter asked me one question today that no one else has had the courage to ask in years. She saw something in me I've been hiding from everyone, including myself." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I'm the CEO of Meridian Solutions. I have references, credentials, a clean background check. I'm not asking to take your daughter anywhere today. But if you'd consider it, if you'd be comfortable, I would be honored to spend a day with Sophie. A Saturday, maybe. Wherever and however you'd feel safe. Museum, park, lunch. With your supervision, if you'd prefer." Kendrick stared at her for a long moment. "Why?" he asked finally. "Why would you want to spend your Saturday with someone else's kid?" Bridget's voice cracked slightly. "Because I've spent 15 years building a career and forgot to build a life. Because today is my birthday, and I'm spending it alone on a park bench, and your daughter is the first person who's been genuinely honest with me in longer than I can remember. Because..." She looked down at Sophie, who was watching her with those ancient, hopeful eyes. "Because maybe we could help each other. Just for one day." The silence stretched between them, filled only by falling snow and distant city sounds. Sophie tugged on her father's sleeve. "Please, Daddy. I have a good feeling about her. Like how you said you had a good feeling about Mommy when you first met her." Kendrick's expression softened at the mention of his late wife. He looked at his daughter, at the hope blazing in her face, the first real light he'd seen there in months. Then back at Bridget, this strange, elegant woman who his daughter had somehow decided to trust. "Saturday," he said finally. "The Natural History Museum. I'll bring her at 10 a.m. I'll stay in the museum the whole time. You can spend the day together, but I want to be close by." Relief flooded Bridget's face. "That's more than fair. Thank you, Mr. Martinez. I promise I'll..." "Call me Kendrick. And Miss Jones. Bridget. Bridget. She's all I have. So if you're doing this for a photo op or some kind of charity PR, I'm doing this." Bridget interrupted gently, "because I woke up this morning in a beautiful apartment that felt like a prison, and your daughter just offered me a window. That's all. Just a chance to matter to someone for one day." Kendrick studied her face for another long moment, then nodded slowly. They exchanged phone numbers, made plans, confirmed details. Professional, practical, careful. But when Sophie threw her arms around Bridget's waist in an impulsive hug, whispering, "Thank you, Miss Bridget," something shifted in the universe. Bridget hugged her back, breathing in the scent of children's shampoo and worn teddy bear fur, and felt the ice around her heart begin, just barely, to thaw. Saturday arrived wrapped in winter sunshine, the kind of bright cold morning that made everything look clean and possible. Bridget arrived at the Natural History Museum at 9:45 a.m., 15 minutes early, because old habits die hard. She'd changed outfits 4 times that morning, finally settling on dark jeans, boots, and a soft cream sweater. Casual. Approachable. Non-threatening. Her hands shook slightly as she waited. At exactly 10 a.m., she spotted them, Kendrick holding Sophie's hand, Sophie practically vibrating with excitement in a purple dress that was clearly her special occasion outfit. "Miss Bridget," Sophie broke free and ran to her, Mr. Buttons tucked under one arm. Good morning, sweetheart. Don't you look beautiful? Daddy helped me with my hair. See? Sophie turned around to show off a French braid that was slightly crooked, but made with obvious care and determination. Bridget met Kendrick's eyes over his daughter's head. He looked nervous, protective, but trying to be brave. She understood. She was terrified too. It's perfect, Bridget said sincerely. Shall we go see some dinosaurs? They started in the dinosaur exhibit because that's where Sophie wanted to begin. Kendrick followed at a discreet distance, close enough to intervene, far enough to give them space. Sophie's hand slipped into Bridget's as they stood beneath the towering T-Rex skeleton, and Bridget felt her heart stutter at the casual trust. My mommy liked dinosaurs, Sophie said conversationally. She said they were proof that even the biggest, strongest things can disappear, so we should be kind while we're here. Bridget squeezed her small hand gently. Your mommy sounds like she was very wise. She was. Daddy says I have her smile, but I can't really remember what her smile looked like anymore. We have pictures, but it's not the same as remembering, you know. I know. They wandered through the exhibits, Sophie chattering about school, her friends, her teacher Ms. Rodriguez, who was nice, but didn't understand why Sophie sometimes got quiet during Mother's Day projects. The other kids make cards and I just sit there, Sophie admitted, studying a display of ancient pottery. Ms. Rodriguez lets me draw pictures instead, but it's not the same. That must be hard. It is. But Daddy says hard things make us stronger, like how diamonds come from coal that gets squeezed really tight. Bridget smiled. Your daddy is pretty smart. He is. He's the smartest daddy in the world. But he can't teach me girl things because he's a boy. What kind of girl things do you want to learn? Sophie's face lit up. How to braid hair with ribbons. How to paint nails. How to walk in fancy shoes without falling down. How to. She lowered her voice to a whisper. How to know if a boy likes you. Bridget laughed, the first genuine, unguarded laugh that had escaped her in months. Sophie, you're 5 years old. I know, but Tommy Jenkins shared his applesauce with me yesterday and Daddy says when a boy shares food, it means something. Did he? Uh-huh. He said that's how he knew Mommy liked him too. She shared her sandwich on their first date. Bridget glanced back at Kendrick, who was pretending to study a display while obviously listening to every word. Their eyes met and he shrugged, a small smile tugging at his lips.
Have you ever met a stranger who changed your life in a single conversation? Someone who saw past your walls and recognized the loneliness you were hiding? Drop a comment and tell me about that person, because these connections matter more than we realize. And if this story is touching your heart, please hit that like and subscribe button. It helps more people find these stories of hope.
They had lunch in the museum cafe, grilled cheese for Sophie, salad for Bridget, coffee for Kendrick at a nearby table. Sophie dipped her sandwich in tomato soup, swinging her legs that didn't quite reach the floor. Miss Bridget, can I ask you something? Of course. How come you don't have kids? You're really good at talking to kids. The question, delivered with such innocent directness, stabbed deeper than Bridget expected. I've been very focused on my work. I built a company and that took a lot of time. But don't you get lonely? Daddy says work is important, but people are importanter. More important, Bridget corrected gently, then paused. And yes, I do get lonely. Sophie reached across the table and patted Bridget's hand with her small, soup-sticky fingers. That's okay. I get lonely too. But maybe we can be lonely together and then we won't be lonely anymore. The simple logic of it, the pure, uncomplicated kindness, brought tears to Bridget's eyes. I would like that very much. After lunch, they visited the butterfly pavilion, a humid, tropical greenhouse filled with hundreds of butterflies in every color imaginable. Sophie gasped with delight as a monarch landed on her shoulder. Miss Bridget, look. She chose me. You must be someone special. Mommy used to say butterflies are like angels checking on us. Do you think this is Mommy? Bridget's throat tightened. I think your mommy is always with you, sweetheart. And if she sent that butterfly, it's because she knows you're with someone who cares about you very much. Sophie studied the butterfly thoughtfully. I think Mommy would like you. You have kind eyes. Daddy says kind eyes are the most important thing. They spent an hour in the pavilion, surrounded by wings and color and the innocence of Sophie's wonder. Bridget found herself relaxing in a way she hadn't in years. No board meetings to think about. No strategies to plan. No emails to answer. Just this moment. This little girl. This fragile, unexpected connection. Before leaving, they stopped at the gift shop. Sophie's eyes went wide at the displays of toys and books and treasures. Can I get something, Daddy? She called back to Kendrick. One small thing, baby. Sophie examined her options seriously like a scientist considering important data. Finally, she selected a book about butterflies. So I can remember today, she explained to Bridget. That's perfect. But wait, I have something for you too. Bridget picked up a set of hair ribbons in every color, along with a small book titled The Girl's Guide to Braiding. For practicing, Bridget said softly. And maybe next time I see you, we can practice together? Sophie's eyes filled with tears of pure joy. Next time? There's going to be a next time? Bridget looked back at Kendrick, who had moved closer, his expression unreadable. If your daddy says it's okay, yes. I'd like there to be a next time. Kendrick's voice was rough with emotion. Yeah, that would be okay. They stood in the museum parking lot as the winter sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Sophie hugged Bridget fiercely, Mr. Button squashed between them. Thank you for the best day ever, Miss Bridget. Thank you for asking me, Sophie. You gave me something I didn't even know I was missing. What? A reason to smile. Sophie pulled back, studying Bridget's face seriously. You have a really pretty smile. You should use it more. I'll work on that. Kendrick extended his hand, and Bridget shook it. Thank you, he said simply. She hasn't been this happy since, in a long time. Neither have I. Kendrick extended his hand, and Bridget shook it. Thank you, he said simply. She hasn't been this happy since, in a long time. Neither have I. They stood there for a moment, three people connected by unexpected grace, by loneliness transformed into something gentler. Same time next Saturday? Bridget asked. Kendrick smiled, a real smile that transformed his tired face. Same time next Saturday. The second Saturday, they went to the zoo. This time, Kendrick didn't shadow them quite so closely. He sat on benches reading while they explored, trust growing incrementally. Sophie held Bridget's hand as they watched the penguins. Miss Bridget, did you know penguins mate for life? Mr. Henderson told us in science time. He said they find one penguin they love, and they stay together forever. That's beautiful. Do you think people do that too? Stay together forever. Bridget thought of all the relationships she'd sacrificed for her career, all the dates she'd sabotaged with impossible standards, all the ways she'd convinced herself she was better off alone. I think the right people do, when they find each other. Sophie squeezed her hand. Maybe we found each other. By the third Saturday, Kendrick agreed to let Sophie come to Bridget's apartment for a baking afternoon. He drove her over, checking every lock and exit, taking photos of Bridget's ID and address, making no apology for his caution. I understand, Bridget assured him. I'll have her back by 5. Sophie gasped when she saw Bridget's apartment, the floor-to-ceiling windows, the modern furniture, the view of the glittering city. Miss Bridget, you live in the sky. Sometimes it feels that way. A little lonely up here in the sky. Not anymore, Sophie declared. Now I'm here. They baked chocolate chip cookies, and Sophie got flour in her hair and chocolate on her dress, and giggled herself breathless when Bridget made funny faces while they waited for the timer. My mommy and I used to bake, Sophie said, carefully placing cookies on the cooling rack. I don't remember what we made, but I remember her laughing. She laughed a lot. I bet she had a beautiful laugh. Daddy says I laugh like her. When I really laugh, not the quiet laugh. The big one. Then I hope you laugh like that a lot. Sophie looked up at her seriously. I do now. When I'm with you. They developed rituals. Saturday mornings became sacred. 10 a.m. pickup. Adventures around the city. Lunch where Sophie got to pick the place. Afternoon activities, museums, parks, libraries, craft stores. 5 p.m. return. Bridget found herself planning her weeks around these Saturdays. Leaving work early on Fridays to prepare. Researching fun activities for 5-year-olds. Shopping for craft supplies and children's books. Her assistant noticed the change. Ms. Jones, you're smiling at your desk. Should I be worried? I'm just happy, Alyssa. I've worked for you for 3 years. I've never seen you happy. I know. I'm trying something new. One Saturday, about 2 months into their routine, Sophie asked to have her hair braided. Will you show me? Like in the book. They sat on Bridget's living room floor. The Girl's Guide to Braiding open between them, ribbons scattered around them like colorful confetti. Bridget's hands were clumsy at first. She'd never braided anyone's hair but her own, and that had been years ago. But slowly, carefully, she wove Sophie's blonde hair into a simple 3-strand braid, then threaded a purple ribbon through it. There. What do you think? Sophie ran to the mirror and stared at her reflection, tears streaming down her face. Miss Bridget. I look like the pictures of me and Mommy. She used to do it just like this. She turned and threw herself into Bridget's arms, sobbing not from sadness, but from the bittersweet ache of remembering and being remembered. Thank you. Thank you for making me feel like I have a mommy again. Bridget held her close, her own tears falling into Sophie's hair. You do have a mommy, sweetheart. She's just in your heart now instead of beside you. But I'm honored, so honored, to help you remember her. Kendrick started staying for coffee when he picked Sophie up. 5 minutes became 15. 15 became 30. They'd talk while Sophie showed him everything they'd done, crafts, drawings, photos from their adventures. She's different, Kendrick said one evening, watching his daughter play with a dollhouse Bridget had bought. Lighter. She still misses her mom. She always will, but she's not carrying it alone anymore. Neither am I, Bridget admitted. Their eyes met, and something passed between them, recognition, gratitude, the beginning of something neither was quite ready to name. Thank you for giving me my little girl back, Kendrick said softly. Thank you for sharing her with me. 3 months into their Saturdays, they returned to the zoo, all 3 of them this time. Kendrick had the day off, and Sophie insisted he join them. They watched the penguins again, Sophie positioned between 2 adults who were both learning how to build a family from broken pieces. Look, they're holding hands. Sophie squealed, pointing at 2 penguins standing wing to wing. Well, wings. But it's like holding hands. Flippers, Kendrick corrected with a smile. Daddy, you're ruining the romance. Bridget laughed, and Kendrick caught her eye over Sophie's head. They both smiled, tentative, aware of something growing between them, but afraid to acknowledge it too soon. Sophie, with the insight of children who notice everything, grabbed both their hands. Now we're like the penguins. All together. The Saturdays became Saturday and sometimes Wednesdays. Emergency calls when Kendrick's shift ran late, and he needed someone to watch Sophie for a few hours. Dinner invitations. Movie nights. Bridget's immaculate apartment became lived in, crayons on the coffee table, children's books on the shelf beside Harvard Business Reviews, a small purple toothbrush in the guest bathroom. Her assistant definitely noticed. Miss Jones, you left at 5:30. Again. I have plans. You never have plans. Who are you and what have you done with my workaholic boss? Bridget smiled mysteriously. I'm learning that there are more important things than quarterly earnings reports. I'm sorry, what? Say that again. 6 months after that snowy day in the park, Bridget was a different person. She still ran her company with intelligence and dedication, but she no longer stayed until midnight. She no longer answered emails at 5 a.m. She no longer measured her worth solely in profit margins and client testimonials. She measured it in Sophie's laughter, in Kendrick's growing trust, in the way a small hand reached for hers without hesitation, in the feeling of coming home to an apartment that was no longer empty, even when she was alone, because it held memories now, warmth, evidence of love. Her father noticed during their monthly call. You sound different, Bridget. I am different, Dad. Good different or bad different? The best different. She told him about Sophie, about Kendrick, about finding purpose beyond the boardroom. He was quiet for a long moment. Your mother would be proud. I know I haven't said this enough, but I'm proud too. Bridget cried after that call, healing tears, grateful tears. The invitation came home in Sophie's backpack on a Wednesday evening. Muffins with Mom. A special mother-daughter event. Riverside Elementary Kindergarten class. Friday, 9 a.m. All mothers, grandmothers, aunts, and special female figures welcome. Kendrick found it while packing Sophie's lunch for the next day. His daughter was already in bed, the apartment quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. He stared at the invitation for a long time, his chest tight. Last year, Sophie had stayed home that day. He'd called in sick to work so she wouldn't be alone, and they'd spent the morning at the park, both of them pretending it wasn't breaking their hearts. He picked up his phone, hesitated, then dialed. Kendrick. Bridget's voice was warm, concerned. Is everything okay? It's late. Yeah, Sophie got an invitation today. For a mother-daughter event at school on Friday morning. Silence on the other end. And I was wondering, Kendrick continued, his voice rough, if maybe you'd consider going with her. I know it's a work day, and I know it's asking a lot, but she would. God, Bridget, she would be so happy. And I can't give her this. I can give her everything else, but I can't be her mom. Silence on the other end. And I was wondering, Kendrick continued, his voice rough, if maybe you'd consider going with her. I know it's a work day, and I know it's asking a lot, but she would. God, Bridget, she would be so happy. And I can't give her this. I can give her everything else, but I can't be her mom. Kendrick. Bridget's voice cracked. I would be honored. Does Sophie know you're asking me? No. I wanted to check with you first. I don't want her to get her hopes up if. Tell her yes. Tell her absolutely yes. Bridget picked Sophie up from school on Thursday, with Kendrick's permission, for a special preparation evening. They went shopping, a real shopping trip, the kind Bridget had never experienced as a child. Sophie tried on dresses, twirling in front of mirrors, her face glowing with excitement. This one makes me look like a princess. Then that's the one. They bought the dress, powder blue with butterflies embroidered along the hem, plus matching hair ribbons and new shoes that Sophie practiced walking in all through the store. Over dinner at Sophie's favorite pizza place, the little girl grew suddenly quiet. Miss Bridget? Yes, sweetheart. Tomorrow, at Muffins with Mom, is it okay if I tell people you're my mom? Just for that day. Bridget's vision blurred with tears. Sophie, you can call me whatever feels right to you. Always. But you're not really my mom. I don't want to lie. My real mom is in heaven. You're not lying, baby. Love doesn't come in only one shape. Your mommy will always be your mommy. No one can ever replace her. But there's room in your heart for more than one person, and there's room in families for all kinds of love. Sophie considered this seriously, her small face thoughtful. So, can I have a heaven mommy and an earth mommy? The simplicity of it, the perfect, childlike logic, shattered something in Bridget. Yes, you can have both. Sophie's smile could have lit the entire city. Bridget took the morning off work, the first time in 5 years she'd called in for a personal day that wasn't illness. She picked Sophie up at 8:30, and they arrived at the school at 8:45. The kindergarten classroom was decorated with handmade flowers and construction paper hearts. Tables were arranged with small chairs, each place set with a paper plate and a homemade placemat. Other mother-daughter pairs were already arriving, moms in business casual taking time off work, stay-at-home moms in jeans, grandmothers with gentle smiles, aunts with cameras ready. Sophie clutched Bridget's hand tightly as they walked in. Everyone, Ms. Rodriguez called out cheerfully, please find your seats. We have name cards. Sophie found theirs, a placemat with her name in crayon, surrounded by carefully drawn butterflies. Next to it, another placemat, written in Sophie's kindergarten handwriting, my mom Bridget. Bridget pressed her hand to her mouth, trying not to sob in the middle of the classroom. They sat down, and Sophie immediately introduced her to the little girl next to them. This is Emma, and that's her mommy, Mrs. Patterson. Emma, this is my mom Bridget. The ease of it. The uncomplicated joy. The absolute certainty in Sophie's voice. Ms. Rodriguez led them through activities, decorating picture frames, making handprint flowers, reading stories about mothers and daughters. During sharing time, each child stood up to say something about their mom. When it was Sophie's turn, she stood up proudly, holding Bridget's hand. This is my mom Bridget. She's the CEO of a big company, which means she's really important and helps lots of people. But she also helps me. She teaches me how to braid hair, and she makes the best chocolate chip cookies, and she says I'm special even when I'm sad. My other mommy is in heaven, and she's watching us right now, and I think she's happy we found each other. There wasn't a dry eye in the classroom. Ms. Rodriguez hugged Sophie gently. Thank you for sharing, Sophie. Your family is beautiful. As they walked to the car, Sophie carrying her handprint flower and decorated frame, she looked up at Bridget seriously. Miss Bridget? Mom Bridget? Yes, sweetheart. Thank you for being my earth mommy. Bridget knelt down on the sidewalk, not caring that it was damp, pulling Sophie into a fierce hug. Thank you for choosing me, Sophie. Thank you for seeing me that day in the park when I couldn't even see myself. You saved my life, do you know that? Sophie hugged her back just as fiercely. You saved mine too. Sometimes family isn't defined by biology. It's defined by the people who show up, who see you, who choose to love you. If you've been blessed with a chosen family member who changed your life, honor them by dropping their name in the comments. Let's celebrate the people who became family by choice. And if this story is reminding you what really matters, please hit that like button. The Friday after the Muffins with Mom event, Kendrick invited Bridget to dinner. Just the two of them. Sophie was having a sleepover at her friend Emma's house. Her first sleepover ever, a milestone that made Kendrick both proud and terrified. "She's growing up," he said as he and Bridget sat at a quiet Italian restaurant. "Too fast. They all do. Bridget." Kendrick set down his fork, his expression serious. "I need to say something, and I need you to hear it." "Okay." He took a deep breath. 6 months ago, I was drowning. I was working 3 extra shifts a week, barely keeping us afloat financially, watching my daughter retreat further into her grief, and I had no idea how to help her. I was failing as a father, and I knew it, and it was destroying me. "Kendrick, please let me finish." He reached across the table, taking her hand. Then Sophie came home from the park talking about a lonely lady on a bench who had kind eyes. And I thought, oh God, another stranger, another risk, but something in her voice. I don't know. I trusted it. His thumb traced circles on her hand. "You gave my daughter her light back. You gave her hope and joy and the girl moments I could never provide no matter how hard I tried. But Bridget, you did something else too." "What?" "You gave me my life back. Because for the first time in 2 years, I'm not doing this alone. I have someone who loves Sophie almost as much as I do. Someone I can call when I'm overwhelmed. Someone who shows up every single time, no questions asked." Tears streamed down Bridget's face. "You showed up too, Kendrick. You trusted me with your most precious treasure. Do you know how rare that is? How brave." "I want to ask you something," Kendrick said quietly. "And you can say no. I'll understand. But I need to ask. Anything. Where is this going? Us. Because I can't keep pretending I don't feel it. I can't keep pretending that watching you with my daughter doesn't make me fall a little more in love with you every single day." The restaurant sounds faded to nothing. "I'm in love with you, Bridget. Completely, terrifyingly in love. And if you don't feel the same way, that's okay. You can keep being Sophie's Earth mommy and I'll keep my feelings to myself. But I needed you to know." Bridget was openly crying now, not bothering to wipe the tears away. "Kendrick, I've spent my entire adult life believing I was too focused, too ambitious, too damaged to build a family. I thought love was a luxury I couldn't afford. I thought I'd miss my chance." She squeezed his hand. "Then a little girl asked if she could spend a day with me, and I discovered I'd been starving for something I didn't even know I needed. I fell in love with her first, with her courage and her honesty and her ability to see past every wall I'd built. And," Kendrick whispered, "and then I fell in love with you. With the way you love her so fiercely. With your strength and your vulnerability, and the way you French braid her hair even though you're terrible at it. With your integrity and your kindness and the way you made room for me in your lives even though you were terrified. So yes, Kendrick. I'm in love with you. Both of you. And I don't want just Saturdays anymore. I want every day. I want chaos and messes and homework help and parent-teacher conferences. I want the whole beautiful, terrifying, imperfect thing." Kendrick stood up, pulled her to her feet, and kissed her in the middle of the restaurant. A kiss that tasted like tears and hope and new beginnings. The other diners applauded. Neither of them noticed. They told Sophie the next morning, over breakfast at Bridget's apartment, which was already starting to feel like their apartment, though no one had officially said it yet. Sophie was eating pancakes shaped like butterflies, her feet swinging happily. "Sophie, baby," Kendrick started, "Miss Bridget, and I need to talk to you about something important." Sophie looked up, syrup on her chin, suddenly serious. "Are you mad at me?" "What?" "No, baby, no. We need to tell you something good. Really good," Bridget added. Sophie looked between them, her 6-year-old mind working overtime. Are you boyfriend and girlfriend?" Kendrick laughed. "Yes, we are. How do you feel about that?" Sophie considered this for approximately 3 seconds before launching herself out of her chair and into Bridget's arms. "Does this mean you can be my real mommy? Not just Earth mommy, but forever mommy." Bridget held her close, breathing in the scent of syrup and children's shampoo and pure, uncomplicated joy. "If that's what you want, and if your daddy and I do this right, yes. Forever mommy." Sophie turned to her father. "Daddy, can we keep her?" "Please, please, please. I'm planning on it, baby. Can we all live together?" Bridget and Kendrick exchanged glances. Eventually, Kendrick said carefully, "We're going to take things slow. Make sure we do this right, because you're the most important person in the world to both of us." "But yes," Bridget added, "that's where we're heading. Toward being a family." Sophie squealed with delight, dancing around the kitchen. "I'm going to have a mommy and a daddy. A real family. Just like Emma and just like the penguins. She stopped suddenly, her face growing thoughtful. Will my heaven mommy be sad? Kendrick knelt down, bringing himself to her eye level. No, baby. Your heaven mommy loved you more than anything in the world. And I think she sent Bridget to us. I think she knew you needed an earth mommy to braid your hair and teach you girl things. I think she's up there right now smiling. Sophie nodded solemnly. I think so too. I felt her that day at the park. When I saw Miss Bridget on the bench, something inside me said, go talk to her. I think that was mommy telling me it was okay. Bridget pulled both of them into a hug, this fragile, beautiful family that had assembled itself from loneliness and loss, and a child's courageous question. Kendrick proposed on a Saturday morning in the park, the same bench where Sophie had first approached Bridget exactly 1 year before. He'd planned it with Sophie's help. She was his co-conspirator, barely containing her excitement as they walked through the snow. Remember this bench, Bridget? Kendrick asked. I'll never forget it. It's where my life changed. Mine too. He took her hand. Sophie, do you want to help Daddy now? Sophie nodded enthusiastically, pulling a small velvet box from her coat pocket. Kendrick took it, then knelt in the snow. Bridget Jones, you told me once that you'd built an empire around an empty heart. But baby, you filled mine and Sophie's until we can hardly contain it. You've taught me that family isn't just what you're born into. It's what you build, one courageous choice at a time. He opened the box, revealing a ring with 3 stones. One for each of us. A family. Will you marry me? Bridget was crying too hard to speak, so she just nodded. Sophie jumped up and down. She said yes. She said yes. I'm getting a mommy for real. 2 years later. The snow fell softly on that December afternoon. Different snow, different year, same park. Bridget sat on the bench, but everything had changed. She wore a wedding ring. She held a 6-month-old baby, James Kendrick Martinez Jones, bundled against the cold. Beside her, Sophie sat at age 8, doing homework with the serious concentration she brought to everything. Kendrick approached with hot chocolates, settling in beside his wife. Look familiar? He teased. Very. Though the company is much better this time. Sophie looked up from her math worksheet. Mom, is this where you and Daddy fell in love? This is where I fell in love with you first, Bridget corrected. You were so brave that day, approaching a stranger. I wasn't brave. I was lonely. Sometimes they're the same thing. A little girl walked past, maybe 5 years old, holding her mother's hand, laughing at something. Sophie watched them, a small smile on her face. I used to be jealous of kids with moms, she admitted. Now I just feel lucky. Me too, Bridget whispered. The baby stirred in her arms, making small sounds. Bridget gazed down at him, this second miracle, this unexpected blessing that had come after she thought her family was complete. Your son is perfect, Kendrick murmured, kissing her temple. Asterisk our son. Our son. Sophie packed up her homework. Can we go home now? I want to show James the ornaments I made in art class. Of course. They stood, a family unit now, preparing to walk back to the apartment they shared, the one that was no longer pristine and empty, but chaotic with toys and laughter and the beautiful mess of life. Bridget paused, looking back at the bench. Thank you, she whispered, to the universe, to fate, to Sophie's heaven mommy, to the woman she used to be who'd been brave enough to say yes to a child's impossible question. Thank you for saving me. Sometimes the most important question isn't one you ask, it's one you answer. Bridget Jones thought she had built a life. She had the career, the success, the admiration. But she hadn't built the things that actually matter: connection, family, love. It took a 5-year-old girl with ancient eyes to show her what she was missing. One question: can I spend a day with you? One courageous yes. One Saturday that became forever. Because here's the truth we forget in our busy, ambitious, achievement-obsessed lives. You can build empires, but they'll feel empty without someone to share them with. You can reach the pinnacle of success, but you'll stand there alone if you've sacrificed relationships at the altar of ambition. The most meaningful legacy isn't what you build, it's who you love. Bridget learned that lesson on a snowy park bench from the wisest teacher she'd ever met, a motherless child who saw her loneliness and offered to share it. They saved each other. They became family not through blood, but through choice. Through showing up. Through braided hair and butterfly museums and muffins with mom and 1,000 small moments that added up to forever. And when Bridget looks back now at her life before Sophie, before Kendrick, before she learned to measure success in laughter instead of profit margins, she can hardly recognize the woman she was. That woman had everything and nothing. This woman has what actually matters: a little girl who calls her mom, a man who loves her deeply, a baby who will grow up knowing he's wanted, and a heart that's finally completely full. All because she said yes. All because she was brave enough to be vulnerable with a stranger. All because one act of kindness opened a door to everything she'd been missing. Today, the Martinez Jones family lives in a house just outside the city. It has a backyard where Sophie, now in 4th grade, practices soccer. It has a nursery where baby James is learning to crawl. It has a home office where Bridget still runs Meridian Solutions, but now with clear boundaries between work and family. Kendrick recently completed his contractor's license and started his own handyman business. He's home for dinner every night. They return to that park bench every year on the anniversary, December 12th, the day their family began. Sophie still has Mr. Buttons, though he's more patched than Original Bear now. She keeps him on her bed, a reminder of the day she was brave enough to ask a stranger a question that changed 3 lives. Bridget started a mentorship program at her company, Big Sisters Rising, matching professional women with children from single-parent homes. Over 100 matches have been made in 2 years. Because she learned something that day in the park: everyone is lonely. Everyone is looking for connection. And sometimes all it takes is the courage to ask, or the generosity to answer. Here's what I want you to take away from Sophie and Bridget's story. Somewhere in your life right now, there's an opportunity to connect, to reach out, to say yes to something unexpected, to be vulnerable with a stranger, to let someone in past the walls you've built. Maybe it's mentoring a young person who needs guidance. Maybe it's accepting help when you've always insisted you don't need it. Maybe it's choosing presence over productivity, even just for one Saturday. Maybe it's seeing the loneliness in someone else and having the courage to acknowledge it. We live in a world that celebrates independence, achievement, self-sufficiency. But we're not meant to build empires alone. We're meant to build families, chosen or biological, traditional or unconventional, but always rooted in love. Success without connection is just loneliness with better furniture. Have you ever witnessed an act of kindness that completely changed someone's life trajectory? Maybe you were the giver or the receiver. Maybe you watched it happen to someone else. Share your story in the comments below, because these stories matter. They remind us what we're capable of when we choose love over fear. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button. It genuinely helps more people discover these reminders of human goodness. And if you want more stories about ordinary people choosing extraordinary kindness, stories that will restore your faith in humanity and maybe inspire you to change someone's life, please subscribe to this channel. Most importantly, I want to challenge you. What's your park bench moment going to be? Where's the place in your life where you can say yes to an unexpected connection? Where can you see someone else's loneliness and choose to share it rather than ignore it? You have the power to change someone's entire world. Sophie changed Bridget's with one brave question. What question will you ask? What unexpected yes will you give? Look for those moments this week. Be brave like Sophie. Be open like Bridget. Be willing like Kendrick. Because somewhere out there, someone is sitting on a park bench waiting, not for a savior, but for connection. For someone who sees them. For someone who shows up. Be that person. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. Thank you for believing that kindness matters. Now go build something more important than an empire. Go build a family of hearts that choose each other.